Welcome to Nasdaq TradeTalks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq, coming to you live from the SALT Conference in New York City. Joining me for this segment, we have Bo Lee, Managing Director at the International Monetary Fund. Bo, it is great to have you with us. Welcome to TradeTalks.
Thanks for having me.
All right, you got it. I'm going to focus on climate change for a moment here. What are the most important steps that need to happen to make real progress on climate change?
I think three things are important. The first one is carbon pricing. We need to raise the price of carbon if we want to have a hope, a reasonable possibility of achieving net zero by 2050. Our estimate shows that if we want to achieve net zero by 2050, global average carbon price of $85 per ton is needed by 2030. The second step we think that's also important is climate finance. In the next 20, 30 years, we need to invest a lot in renewable energy, in mitigation, in adaptation. And in mitigation alone, we need to raise the level of investment from $900 billion in 2020 to around $5 trillion by 2030 every year. And among that $5 trillion, $2 trillion has to be invested in developing countries and emerging markets. And of course, public sector cannot achieve that level of investment. We need private sector to step up. The third thing that has to happen, we think, is a green innovation, green technology. We need to support more technology innovation in renewables, in adaptation, and in other mitigation areas. We also need to diffuse these technologies to developing countries, to emerging markets, if we want to have a global collaboration on mitigation and on adaptation. And finally, we think international cooperation is important if we want to achieve all these steps. Developing countries and emerging markets, they need help. They need help from the international community. They also need investment from private sector. And also in terms of carbon pricing, in terms of technology, as I also mentioned, we also need collaboration so that we can have a global solidarity in terms of a consistent set of carbon pricing policies and also in terms of technology diffusion. Yeah. Let's stop here.
You're the IMF senior official for climate change. What motivates you to do this kind of work?
Well, first of all, I talk to a lot of people. I talk to many countries. I go to many countries. I meet with the prime minister, with the president. I also meet with students, with business people, and talking to them, talking to people that are most impacted by climate really motivated me because, for example, I went to Fiji, island country in the Pacific. I went to Fiji in February. I went to a village close to the, next to the ocean, and the village head showed me a seawall that they built, trying to protect the village from total devastation by the sea. And that seawall was literally the only thing prevents the village from being wiped off the earth. So that trip is one example of the kind of people I meet on a regular basis, and it really gives me a lot of motivation to work hard to try to save these kind of villages. I think another motivation as a professional economist is that I believe economics can help to turn the corner. And that also gives me more optimism. For example, in the last since 2015, in the last 9 years, we have seen a lot of carbon pricing schemes in more than 50 countries. Now more than 25% of global emission is now covered by some kind of carbon pricing scheme. That's already doubling in the last 9 years. And let me give you another example. Today, for every $1 invested in fossil fuel, there is $1.7 invested in renewable. That's up to, 5 years ago it's 1 to 1. Now it's 1 to 1.7. So we are moving towards the right direction. We have taken some very crucial steps in terms of trying to mitigate the worst impact of climate change, such as the Paris Agreement. What we need now is to implement that agreement with speed and with more ambition. And finally, I think one thing giving me optimism is my children.
Right.
My children, their generation, they care a lot more about climate and the environment than our generation. My kids, they don't like economics, they don't like economists, but they like the fact that their father is working on climate change.
Yeah.
So I feel proud.
And that's amazing. To your point earlier about Fiji, it's also protecting local economies. These are great drivers of jobs as well. So it sets up the next economic driver as well. But would you consider yourself a climate optimist or pessimist? How should we be thinking about this?
Well, as I said, I think I'm cautiously optimistic that first of all, I think economics can help turn the corner, and second of all, our next generation, they are much more committed to climate. And given that, I think we can speed up our climate action with more ambition and with more speed.
All right, Bo, we appreciate the insight. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks, and thanks for joining me from SALT in New York City. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.